It's January 22nd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Hamas's Israeli hostage release deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he rejected Hamas's proposal to end the war in exchange for the release of hostages as well as the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. While the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar are reportedly pushing Israel and Hamas to accept a comprehensive plan that would end the war, free hostages, and form a Palestinian state. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he has dropped out of the 2024 presidential race and now endorses Donald Trump. DeSantis says it has become clear that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Trump another chance. Korean-born New Zealand golfer Lydia Co won the LPGA Tournament of Champions on Sunday, capturing her 20th career LPGA victory. It's also her 28th victory since turning professional in 2012. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he would not agree to Hamas's demand for a ceasefire in exchange for releasing the remaining hostages. Now, Netanyahu's remarks came after he spoke with U.S. President Joe Biden back on Friday. Our Kim Jong-sil starts us off this morning.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country will not agree to Hamas demands for a ceasefire.
In exchange for the release of our hostages, Hamas demands the end of the war, the withdrawal of our forces from Gaza. If we agree to this, our warriors fell in vain, and the next October 7th will only be a matter of time.
On October 7th last year, around 3,000 Hamas forces stormed across the fences from Gaza into southern Israel, killing at least 1,200 people, including Israelis and foreign nationals, and taking 240 others as hostages. Israel drafted a record 300,000 troops in its response and has been attacking Hamas in Gaza for 107 days now. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 25,000 people have been killed in Gaza in that time. The Israeli Prime Minister also reiterated his opposition to an independent Palestinian state, saying Gaza must be under the full security control of Israel, possibly responding to the U.S. response after Friday's phone conversation with Biden.
President Biden has made clear his strong conviction that a two-state solution is still the right path ahead, and we're going to continue to make that case.
The Wall Street Journal reported on Sunday that the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar are pushing Israel and Hamas to join a phased diplomatic process. Citing diplomats involved in mediation, the three-step process reportedly includes the releasing of hostages, withdrawal of Israeli forces, and finally ending the war in Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas media office released a statement on Sunday saying that there were, quote, faults in the October 7 attack. But the statement also said the attack was, quote, to confront all Israeli conspiracies against the Palestinian people. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In eastern Ukraine, at least 25 people have been killed by Ukrainian shelling in a shopping area in the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk. Local authorities said Ukrainian forces on Sunday fired artillery shells on shops and a market in the suburb of Tekstilchik, adding that 20 more people, including 2 children, have been injured in the strike. Authorities there have declared Monday a day of mourning. Russia's foreign ministry denounced the strike, saying security threats and the act of terrorism should not be committed from the territory of Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has not commented on the incident. Seoul says it's unlikely North Korea successfully tested a nuclear-capable underwater drone last Friday. An official at the presidential office told the press that based on South Korea's analysis to date and the lack of photographic evidence, the North's claims are likely to be exaggerated or fabricated. If the tests had proceeded, the North would presumably have tested a type of torpedo, but it's unlikely that it was a nuclear propulsion system. North Korea last March first declared a successful testing of its Hail-523 underwater nuclear system, with 2 more launches in 2023. The presidential office officials said South Korea's military is continuously tracking and monitoring the development of the North's underwater weapon systems, such as nuclear torpedoes and submarine-launched ballistic missiles, adding that the South already possesses an overwhelming capability to strike the bases that host such weapons in the event of an emergency. North Korea over the weekend continued to give updates on its top diplomat Choi Sun-hee's visit to Russia, saying that Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his willingness to visit Pyongyang in the near future. We're joined by Dr. Bruce Klinger this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. If Putin does visit the North, that will probably come after the Russian presidential election in March, right?
Right. The election is in mid-March, so one may think that the preparations for a summit visit would take longer than that. But whether it's before or after the mid-March Russian election, it certainly will raise concerns or growing concerns of what North Korea may get in return from Russia for all of the ammunition that Pyongyang has provided for Russian operations in Ukraine. So it's over 1 million shells, perhaps 2 million shells that have been transported. So some analysts think that perhaps Russia will give them the crown jewels of military technology, nuclear warhead designs, reentry vehicle, et cetera. I think it will more likely be secondary, but still very worrisome military technologies dealing with, say, conventional weapons or satellite reconnaissance.
Dr. Klinger, the thing is there are growing concerns that North Korea may stage major provocations in the coming weeks or even months ahead of the April general election here in South Korea, because the North has done that multiple times in the past. What is Pyongyang really trying to achieve here?
Well, North Korea always does provocations before South Korean elections, except when they don't. So there have been a number of elections that they didn't do provocations. But certainly this year is expected to be quite a bumpy year. We've seen very strong North Korean rhetoric, as well as some artillery fire in the West Sea in just the first few days of January. And so whether it's tied to elections or not, we certainly are expecting an increased level of provocations, missile launches. And when I was in Seoul last week talking with government officials, they said they couldn't rule out another tactical deadly attack, such as the 2010 attacks on the Cheonan and Yangpyeong-do.
Then will the North's strategy work? What do you think? How successful will it be?
Well, if we tie it to the elections, there's long been the concern about what's called the northern wind. But I really wonder how many voters would actually be swayed. I think North Korean provocative action would simply affirm in both progressive and conservative minds their pre-existing idea. For progressives, they would see this as increased tension as the result of a conservative administration being too hard on North Korea, and they would want to vote progressive. Conversely, conservatives would say this reveals the true nature of the North Korean regime, and we must have a firm, principled policy by maintaining conservatives in office. So I don't really think it'll really sway the voters, but we don't know if North Korea understands that, and they may still do the provocations, whether it's tied to the election or other strategies.
Definitely. And the Northern Limit Line, which is the de facto inter-Korean maritime border, is where tensions may escalate, with Kim Jong-un, the leader himself, pledging not to recognize the NLL. Why this area? I mean, what significance does it carry?
Well, it has been the site of several deadly clashes between the Koreas, not only the Cheonan and Yangpyeong-do, but other naval battles. The Northern Limit Line was drawn by the UN command shortly after the Korean War, really as a way of preventing South Korean forces from going to north. North Korea has always disputed the boundary, but it wasn't really until the 1970s or so that they increased their denial of the legitimacy of the de facto maritime border. So they have a different view of where the NLL is. They see it as further south So that's why we've had several clashes between the Koreas in that area. By him kind of affirming that North Korea does not accept the UN command or Southern interpretation of the NLL, it could be a signal that we can see more provocations, perhaps even naval clashes in what used to be the buffer zone under the Comprehensive Military Agreement, which North Korea recently abrogated.
Indeed. Dr. Klinger, before I let you go, last Friday, the North apparently tested an underwater nuclear weapon system under the development in response to the latest joint maritime drills between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Why is the North showing off such underwater nuclear weapons?
Well, it's a continuation of all the other weapon systems that they've been showing, not only in the past year, but for the past several years. So we've seen several different types of ICBMs, which can threaten the entire continental United States. Now, with the Hwasong-18, it's a solid fuel. They've also recently successfully launched the reconnaissance satellite. Also, very recently, a solid fuel intermediate range missile, as well as any number of short-range missiles. So this is a way of augmenting their land-based system to have a maritime or naval attack system against U.S. and South Korean ships. And by having it, as they declare, nuclear tipped, obviously that's very worrisome.
Definitely. All right. Thanks so much for your insights. As always, Dr. Klinger, you have a good night there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Korean-born New Zealand golfer Lydia Ko won the LPGA Tournament of Champions on Sunday, ending a 14-month drought. Now, Sunday's win also gave Ko her 20th LPGA title. Lee Seung-jae has more.
At the LPGA Hilton Grand Vacations Tournament of Champions in Florida, Korean-born New Zealand golfer Lydia Ko ended her 14-month drought, winning the tournament with an overall score of 14 under par on Sunday. The 26-year-old, who held a two-shot lead going into the final day, fired a 2 under par 70 in her fourth round to end a long wait to add to her previous LPGA titles. Sunday's win also gave Ko her 20th LPGA title of her career and is the first since the CME Group Tour Championship in 2022. Sunday's win means that she's now just a win away from clinching a spot in the World Golf Hall of Fame. Another victory on the tour would mean Ko would reach the 27-point threshold necessary to be enshrined. A single point is given for each LPGA Tour title, with 2 points given for a major title and a point each for the Vare Trophy for having the best scoring average in a single season and being named the Rolex Player of the Year. With 20 LPGA titles, 2 major titles, 2 Vare Trophies, she has 26 points so far. Aside from the 14-month drought, Ko has had an impressive career that includes her becoming the youngest male or female golfer to rank #1 in the world when she first reached #1 in the Women's World Golf Rankings on February 2, 2015, aged 17 years, 9 months, and 9 days old. In 2015, she became the youngest woman at age 18 years, 14 months, and 20 days to win a major championship when she won the Evian Championship. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now to the 2024 Gangwon Youth Winter Olympic Games currently taking place in South Korea's eastern Gangwon province. The first Winter Youth Olympics in Asia began on Friday with a colorful opening ceremony. Our Song Yu-jin was there.
The Winter Olympics have returned to Korea after 6 years. The 2024 Gangwon Winter Youth Olympic Games, the first of its kind to be held in Asia, kicked off in the country's eastern Gangwon province on Friday. The Youth Olympics, designed for athletes between the ages of 15 and 18, offers a chance to meet the next generation of sports stars despite its smaller scale compared to the Olympics. Some 9,000 spectators gathered at the Gangneung Oval for Friday's opening ceremony.
The opening ceremony seems to be a bit smaller than 2018, but I'm excited to see the athletes, the Olympic stars of the future.
Our whole family's here to support her, and lots of friends and family back home will be watching online. Go Maya! You're gonna do great, win or lose. We're gonna have a lot of fun, and don't forget to listen for us cheering.
The 90-minute ceremony featuring K-pop stars, dance, Korean traditional music, laser art, and more was also broadcast simultaneously at the Pyeongchang Dome in Pyeongchang County. The highlight was the lighting of the Olympic cauldron. A few minutes after the last torchbearer, Korean freestyle skier Lee Jung-min ignited the cauldron inside the oval. The digital cauldron outside also lit up. Gangwon 2024 is the first Olympics to introduce a digital cauldron. Throughout the Games, 1,802 athletes from 78 National Olympic Committees will compete in 15 disciplines across 7 sports. The number changed when Albania's only participating athlete, an alpine skier, withdrew due to health issues. Still, it's a record number of athletes for the Winter Youth Olympics, making the Gangwon Games the biggest yet. The competitions will take place mostly at venues used during the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. As for Team Korea, 102 athletes are participating, the most among all NOCs. The country expects strong performances in short track speed skating, figure skating, half-pipe snowboarding, and bobsleigh.
So with the opening ceremony, Gangwon 2024 starts its 14-day journey. The 4th Winter Youth Olympic Games will run until February 1st. 송유진, Arirang News, Gangneung.
Asiana Airlines will begin weighing its international passengers at Gimpo International Airport starting today. The domestic airline said it will measure the weight of international passengers until the end of January to calculate standard passenger weight and ensure the safe operation of flights. Passengers using Asiana Airlines international flights at Gimpo International Airport can go up to the measuring stand at the departure gate and have their weight measured but can refuse. Passengers will be weighed fully dressed along their carry-on luggage. Airlines are required to measure the weight of passengers at least every 5 years under the Transport Ministry's aircraft weight and balance management standards. The number of people suffering from depression continues to rise, but the societal reluctance to get psychiatric help is not dissipating. But a team of local developers have now found a way for AI to detect an individual's mental health based on mobile phone usage patterns. Ian-jin tells us more.
In 2022, the number of people in South Korea who have visited a clinic for depression surpassed 1 million. The cumulative number was greater among the younger generations, with some 346,000 people in their 20s and 30s. Early detection is key to fighting depression, but most people suffering from the disease don't recognize it. And due to social norms, young people are not encouraged to have mental health check tests that would help detect depression in its early stages. But now a new AI function has been developed that can analyze whether a person needs psychiatric treatment. When the AI function is installed onto a smartphone, it automatically analyzes the person's language usage patterns, both verbal and text. The AI diagnosis takes 2 weeks to a month, during which the AI has a mental health diagnostic pattern that processes the user's keyboard input data and real-time voice data. A very big advantage of this function is that personal information is protected. The AI information is not transmitted to a central server and is processed independently on the individual smartphone.
The analysis function of the AI is based on learned data from patients suffering from depression. We've used a federated learning technique which secures the user's data from leaving the individual's phone.
The research team added that according to language pattern data collected, cues related to mental health analysis were more available when talking to friends and family in the evenings than with coworkers during the day. Also, in order to help the patients get early treatment, the depression detecting technology is being applied to an in-phone application. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Seong, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in the U.S., where Republican candidate Ron DeSantis dropped out of the 2024 presidential race on Sunday, ahead of this week's New Hampshire Republican primary. On the same day, 45-year-old Florida Governor DeSantis posted a video on social media site X, where he endorsed former President Donald Trump as the Republican presidential candidate. Saying that he and the former president had some disagreements, DeSantis called Trump superior to incumbent President Joe Biden adding it is clear that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. DeSantis was seen as a top challenger to Trump, but with most polls showing 70% of Republicans view the former president favorably, and with single-figure projections for the New Hampshire primary, he said his victory was unlikely. His withdrawal leaves former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, the only viable contender to Trump remaining in the Republican Party. Now moving over to India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to inaugurate a new Hindu temple in northern India on Monday, built on a site where rioters destroyed a Muslim mosque over 30 years ago. The plan for the $217 million temple is to transform the city of Ayodhya into a religious hub for Hinduism. The temple, however, is not without controversy, having been built on the site of a 16th century mosque, which was destroyed during a riot by Hindu nationalist mobs in 1992, which spread across the country and resulted in the deaths of 2,000, mostly Muslim people. In 2019, India's Supreme Court gave permission for the Hindu temple to be built against heavy criticism by Muslim groups. Security will be tight for the inauguration, with tens of thousands from various forces, including the police and military, on duty. Now to the Philippines, where floods and mudslides triggered by the recent heavy rainfall in the southern part of the country have left more than a dozen dead and affected more than 490,000 people, the country's civil defense said on Sunday. According to the country's civil defense office, 13 people were killed in landslides in Davao region. The Davao del Norte province is among the regions to have declared a state of disaster. Reports say the recent heavy rain has resulted in agricultural losses of over $1 million. Finally, in winter sports news, Canadians claim victory in both the men's and women's ski cross World Cup. 25-year-old Reese Howden and 29-year-old Hannah Schmidt both took home gold in Alberta, Canada on Saturday. It is the first time in 8 years that Canada has topped both men's and women's podium in the same World Cup. The competition, held at Canada's Nakiska Ski Resort, saw the hosts secure half of the 6 podium positions available.
Good morning. We need to brace for some extreme winter weather this week. A cold wave advisory is in place for most of the upper parts of the country, and feels like temperatures in the capital are nearing minus 15 degrees. The West Coast Jeollado provinces will see heavier snowfall with up to 20 centimeters in the forecast until Tuesday, with a heavy snow advisory in store for parts of 전라북도, 충청도, 제주도, Island, as well as parts of Hwangsong and Pyeongchang in Gangwon-do from the weekend's snow. Athletes at the youth games in Pyeongchang need to brace for biting cold temperatures. Highs in Pyeongchang will only get up to minus 12 degrees Celsius this afternoon. In fact, upper regions will have highs below freezing all day and throughout the week. And beware after spending some time outdoors, if you don't feel yourself, have trouble walking, or have confusion even after going into a warmer place, that's when you need to get to a hospital right away. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.